right, we're going to talk about rational numbers, otherwise known as fractions. So the first thing we're going to do is say we have vocabulary. And it is rational numbers. Okay, what are rational numbers?
Number that can be turned into a fraction.
A number that can be turned into a fraction. So it can be a fraction, and I like to say, or a ratio, rational ratio now, a ratio. If you were going to turn it into a decimal, what would happen to that decimal? Yes? It would be turned into a decimal, but there's only two things that make the decimals rational. What happens to decimals that are rational? They do one of two things. Okay? So if you have 1/2 as a decimal, what is it? 0.5. So 1/2 equals 0.5, which ends, right? So a rational decimal terminates or ends. What else could a rational decimal do? For instance, 1/3 is rational. What does it do? It repeats. So 0.333 and so on, it repeats. Rational decimals either terminate or repeat. So what we're doing on here is we're looking at fractions and putting them in order. So for example, this one, it already tells us they're in halves. So we know that we're going to take each of these integers and put them in halves. Between 0 and 1 comes 1/2. Then 2 halves, which is the same as 1, 3 halves, and 4 halves. Negative 1/2, negative 2 halves, negative 3 halves, negative 4 halves. And then you can go through and match them up. This is an E. 4 halves is an S. 2 halves is an A. Oh, negative 1.5. What's that the same as? Negative 1.5? It's a mixed number. Negative 3 halves. There you go. 3 halves is Y. 1/2 is S. Negative 2 halves is the same as negative 1. So we start with halves and it says, she says. Thirds, between each integer, we're going to have 1/3, 2/3. So thirds has 2 between each integer. So you're going to have to break it up. So it's going to go 0, 1/3, 2/3, 1, 1 1/3, 1 2/3, 2, and so on. Same 0, negative 1/3, negative 2/3, negative 3/3, negative 4/3, negative 5/3, and so on. So let's go on and at least talk about what the various breakdowns are going to be all the way to the bottom. So fourths, how many lines are you going to have in between? You have 0, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4 is a whole. Negative 1/4, negative 2/4, negative 3/4, negative 4/4. So 3 lines in between on fourths. Okay? Fifths, how many do you think is going to go in between? 4, because we're going to make 5. So fifths, negative 1/5, negative 2/5, negative 3/5, negative 4/5, negative 5/5. Right? Then it jumps to eighths. How many lines in between? 7, right? 1/7, 2/7, 3/7, 4/7, 5/7, 6/7, 7/7 makes the whole. And the same way on the negative. Question? We good? Okay.